second subatomic particle default scaffolding. The first one is called subatomic particle default scaffolding. The center. As the integers for those or the representation of those increase surrounding it, and it does so in every direction, that the center could have sided representations of it. As it does this, we're able to create a geometric representation from the center of the universe, or from once you get to a specific point where it can represent the same geometric shape, those default scaffoldings within themselves. You're able to get that geometric representation repeated on itself with one integer variation in reference to the center of the universe itself. Once you do that, that geometric representation can increase in its integer variation while maintaining the same exact properties. Once it does this, you will have what's called a quantum enumeration. Two properties can't be the same property while maintaining the same exact place and the same exact time. But two properties can be replicated from one locality to another locality simultaneously. This is occurrent if second dimensional line of properties are perpetuant, if they don't have any edges. And this also occurs if the second dimensional lines of properties are separated within their own dimension. If you do this, you'll get certain behaviors that can be established from the quantum particles. But this is basically how the original Big Bang occurred. Once you get to where we are in the universe, we'll get into a gravity well. If you remove the subatomic particle default scaffolding, and we have things called gluons, which you share quantum particles together, up quark and an up quark and a down quark, you get two gluons, two from the down quark, and one from each up quark to a down quark. But the up quark and the up quark won't adhere to each other with the gluon. This is how we get separation of the original quantum particles, and how we can get coalescence into atomic compilations such as hydrogen and visible light and other forms of radiation. It seems like it wouldn't be that way, but as soon as you get the first atomic compilation, the universe does an amazing thing. The default scaffolding destroys itself, and you get a enumeration of gravity. It begins a curvature of the universe. Once the universe begins to curve, subatomic particles then begin to enumerate things such as collisions. Collisions don't actually happen. It's just curvature with the same subatomic particles perpetuating out from the center of the universe out, all at the same speed, all simultaneously. Once you get that curvature, the curvature allows things such as collisions, which don't really occur, such as atomic compilations, such as like electrons with photons and protons and neutrons, and other numerical value variant protons, like with two strains and two up and one down, or one string and one anti-string. Once you get this, you're able to say how to fabricate every single form of matter. Now, here's the tricky thing you need to know about the human soul. Gluonic transitions happen whenever you have a gluon that enumerates multiple particles simultaneously, which means when you have two balls that are made up of the same rubber that holds them together. When it goes from one structure default scaffolding to another, the gluon can hold on to those subatomic particles and transition itself. You have to have, like I said before, every single property has to go from -0, which is nothing, up and escalate each dimensional occurrence. Once it goes to each dimensional occurrence, it develops another dimensional escalation by itself. So a dimensional escalation for a second dimension would be numerical value. We would have escalation there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You would have angle, and you would have 45-degree angle, 90-degree, whatever. You would have curvature. You have the perpetual escalation of curvature, which would be a spiral. You would have such things as that. So when you take a subatomic particle default scaffolding and you reapply it to atomic compilation, such as a molecule like DNA or like the brain, uh, if you apply it to it directly and you separate things like the pons and the thalamus and hippocampus and the ganglia, or whatever requisite ones for vegetative function, which would mean you would not actually need DNA, but in order to get the same exact construction for the atomic compilations requisite for the neural structure, which you can get from the stem cells if you enumerate in a sandboxed environment, you'd be able to take sectional portions of the human DNA, sectional portions of the human brain, and isolate those and establish a firing rate towards those portions that's able to temporarily house and perpetuate or continue the human awareness while having those isolated portions of the brain. You need to be aware all over the brain, but you can reestablish an awareness from small portions. And this is all we need. Once we have this, we're able to take a subatomic particle transaction known as an ion from the sodium potassium pumps, from the calcium channels, from the sodium channels, and from the potassium channels. And we're able to take a circuiting process just based on timing, frequency, whatever have you, neurotransmitters, transmitting, synapses and dendrites, what have you. The point is that they're insulated usually. The insulation inhibits us from taking the human awareness and transferring it directly. But if you take the default scaffolding and apply it to any atomic compilation, even cells, you're able to remove the constraints of things such as the membrane. You're able to move things such as the constraints of the insulation of the myelin strips, and you're able to do it to a point that you're able to have ions as a